First season of The Boys left us with a lot of questions. What's the nature of Homelander's relationship with Becca? What plans does Stan Edgar have next? Will A-Train seek revenge or redemption? What will happen to Billy now that he's in Homelander's clutches? What will happen to the boys now that they're on the run? The second season only left me with one question. What the fuck happened?
I'm the cuck.
Before I slap my Compound V enhanced schlong firmly across the face of The Boys Season 2, I guess I'll give a quick review of Season 1 and why I liked it so much. It took the fairly unoriginal premise of what if superheroes were real and they were dicks, and spiced it up with a consistently crafted world, villain performances that inundated every scene with tension, an effective underdog element due to the sheer power of the forces they are up against, and some downright inspired gross-out violence. That being said, the show wasn't perfect. I had 4 major criticisms of Season 1. 1. The romance plotlines were about as emotionally inspired as Attack of the Clones. 2. The reveal that Homelander was evil like the rest of the 7 maybe came a little too early and would have made the iconic plane scene more impactful if they hadn't tipped their hand so early on. I go back and forth on this one because Homelander being nasty is just so fun to watch. 3. The show is a little too proud of its rudimentary message that big corporations are bad.
What is Lockheed Martin's #1 product? You should know this. You served on their board of directors.
The Patriot missile.
Correct.
I know it's hard to accept that giant companies don't care about people. I know how hard it was for me when I first realized it. When I was 8.
As for my fourth criticism, suffice to say Season 2 made me want to take it back, but we'll get to that later, so put critique number 4 out of your head for now. So let's do the plot. And by the way, spoilers. Starlight, the only superhero in town with a heart and a brain, blackmails a lab tech guy into helping her reveal that superheroes aren't born with their powers, they get them from being shot up with a super drug as a baby. This doesn't really affect evil corporation Vought as much as the show hinted it would, and they managed to walk it off. So the boys are on the run, and they're told by an acquaintance in the US intelligence community that if they catch a supervillain, they can have all the charges against them dropped. So ignoring the fact that the US government has been shown to be beholden to Vought, and that any politicians who stand in their way will be killed or blackmailed, and that the Supes are above the law and will just kill whoever they feel like regardless, the boys decide this is the best course of action. Sure is funny how a show with a cynical outlook on the US as a whole somehow believes that American intelligence agencies are moral and true to their word. Anyways, they capture a Supe terrorist, but he's related to the mute chick, so they want to give him a pass. New member of the 7, Stormfront, kills him and ruins their already delusional pathway to freedom. The boys do their digging on Stormfront and learn that she is an immortal Nazi superhero. She works with some sort of research center to make a new Compound V that works on adults, not just children. For what purpose, I don't know. In the finale, she hints that the aim is to only give white people superpowers, but in an earlier scene that's meant to be an indictment of Oscars So White, they reveal that almost all Supes already are white. So I don't really see the threat of Stormfront's plan here, if indeed that even is her plan. They really should have done something like in The Rocketeer, where they show the consequences of the villains winning. In Season 1, the villain plot was about getting the Supes admitted into the US military, although you may have had moral compunctions about that. The goal in and of itself wasn't the real threat. The threat was the vile actions the villains would take in aid of that goal. Stormfront doesn't really have a defined goal and is just sort of doing bad stuff for the sake of it. She's just kind of here to awkwardly insert buzzwords and then get lasered by Homelander's and Becca's son at the end because she's a meanie and bad. Also, I know this is a nitpick, but why do the kids' laser eyes work on Stormfront but Homelander's don't? And another nitpick, why was Homelander able to pass along his superpowers to his offspring, but Stormfront clearly didn't since her daughter aged? And just one more nitpick. Starlight kills an innocent passerby who points a gun at her claiming it's self-defense, but we know she's bulletproof, so why didn't she just walk up to him and take the gun? Okay, alright, fair enough. Enough nitpicks. Wrapping up the plot. The reveal of Stormfront's backstory causes Vought to call off their large-scale distribution of Compound V to the US government. For some reason. To save face, I guess? The kid lasers both Homelander's and Butcher's love interests in one fell swoop. Billy leaves with the kid, Homelander leaves to go masturbate. Side politician character is revealed to be a Supe with her own agenda. Curtains. My thoughts on the plot? The whole rescue Homelander's kid from his father so he doesn't become just like him should have been the real arc this season. It has more emotional complexity to it, more to do with the dynamics of the world and these characters, and of course it naturally puts fan favorite Homelander on the screen. But instead, the Homelander's kid plot was just one giant afterthought compared to the Stormfront shenanigans, which themselves wound up going nowhere. Speaking of the Stormfront shenanigans, that was my fourth criticism of Season 1, the criticism I am now retracting: political commentary. The Boys comic began in 2006, 2 years into Bush 2's second term, so I figured in Season 1 the general public being portrayed as massively Christian right was a holdover from the comics. And not just a holdover, but kind of an embarrassing The Purge election year holdover. Come on guys, it's literally the current year and you're still acting like the Christian right is in power when the modern American right has really shifted to more of a nationalist leaning. They're pretending Hillsong worship is like Coachella, they're saying if you get outed as gay your career is over, and I'm laughing like, wow, this show is so out of touch, get with the times. And this season, they did, and it wasn't horrible, aside from Stormfront being a bit of a nothing character in the end. You've got crazy right-wing shooters for the lefties, you've got secretly sinister string-pulling progressives for the righties, you've got the relentless mocking of women get it done corporate shilling, that's sort of for everybody. But in trying to reflect the modern world, the show sacrifices a key part of its identity that I didn't appreciate until it was gone. Having certain heroes and members of the public think people get powers as a blessing from God, only to learn it's all a lie and they're being made in a lab, or Starlight confronting her mother about her duo soup and religious upbringing. Just because these angles weren't topical doesn't mean they aren't thought-provoking and in service of building an interesting world. I mean, it's more thought-provoking than in Season 2 when the black CEO of Vought says he's fine collaborating with an immortal Nazi as long as it helps the bottom line.
That's a white man's luxury.
So it's just business then, eh?
When, Mr. Butcher, in history, has it ever been about anything different?
That's like as stupid as that scene in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull when the greedy American guy is all happy to get sucked up into the interdimensional vortex because a bunch of treasure is getting sucked into it too. What the fuck, man? The inconsistency of the politics in Season 2 leads to actual narrative problems at some points, when public reaction is used to manipulate soups in a way that's not convincing. They've gone to great pains to show society is slipping into xenophobia as a part of Vought's power plays. Homelander and Stormfront's crowd being entirely white, I sincerely doubt was an accident. It gets to the point where the boys reveal Stormfront as a Nazi in the finale, and I'm like, would these people even care? What made the stakes so threatening in Season 1, but also so exhilarating, was the knowledge that the boys were fighting 3 impossible battles at once. Not only were they facing an evil corporation and evil superheroes, they also had to contend with a public that was so easily misled and manipulated into going along with these villainous entities. But now public opinion sways from one episode to the next in a weird mix of pessimism and optimism. The show clearly has a low opinion of the uninformed American public, and understandably so, but ultimately our heroes' victories are dependent on the misty-eyed belief that the public has the power to change everything if the truth comes out. The citizens of the boys' world are like the citizens of Whoville in the Jim Carrey Grinch movie. The whole movie they're these materialistic assholes, but of course it has to end with them all not being materialistic and proving the Grinch's cynical outlook wrong. I don't know, man. It sure looked to me like the Grinch was right. As much as I enjoyed Season 1 of The Boys, I was nervous before Season 2 even started. Would you like to know why? Because this has all happened before. In 2016, Preacher, the first show produced by Seth Rogen based on a Garth Ennis narrative, debuted, although in fairness, Preacher had a different showrunner and writing staff. Fantastic world building, creative gross-out violence, humanized characters, both villains and heroes, and a kinetic, unpredictable plot, all punctuated by a wild finale that changed the status quo and made you excited for what was coming next. And then you get to Season 2, and there's a loss of all sense of danger, and side plots that seem to go nowhere, and an introduction of initially fascinating villains that wind up having weak, nebulous motivations that gradually peter out. And yet, even after you're bored and you've stopped watching, you're tempted to come back, because you have YouTube, I assume. I mean, how else would you be watching this? And you get all these wild scenes recommended in your feed. A cowboy from hell shoots Satan and Hitler takes over hell, shooting a hole through the earth and jumping through it, blowing up a fat, insidious New World Order mastermind, then fighting among his guts to retrieve your soul from inside his now obliterated anus. Oh my god, I've got to watch this show! And then you do.
I told you about my ex, right? Mm-hmm. Rodney had a drinking problem, and I told him he had to quit, and he swore to me that he did, but...
When the first seasons of both Preacher and The Boys use these "I can't believe that happened" sequences, it's more of a cherry on top of an already exciting episode. A tense episode of being hunted by a guy who is essentially God is punctuated with a vindictive detonation of a rectal bomb. An espionage mission to a super speedster race that is littered with character moments ends with a death we probably all hope to meet one day. But then you get to Season 2 and these moments aren't really a part of a complete episode package. They're bait to string you along and keep you watching. You want to watch them penetrate a whale with a motorboat? Alright, but you have to sit through the deep joining a cult first. Want to watch a mental patient attack the team with a Mr. Fantastic cock? Sit down and watch these two characters that you don't care about bicker about who the real terrorists are. I don't know if this seasonal decay is a Garth Ennis thing, but from my understanding it isn't, since both Preacher and The Boys have apparently deviated wildly from the source material. But now that I think about it, even the big confrontations they tease that seem like they're going to be cool aren't. They spend this whole episode hyping you up about this confrontation with Black Noir, who is essentially the Batman of this universe. They're building it up, they're stalling for time, hinting at exactly what this hero can do since we haven't really seen it. They're setting up traps, they even reference Home Alone, and then the confrontation comes. Oh, we walked right through the traps and we didn't see it. My expectations were so subverted. Was this angle supposed to be played for comedy or drama? I mean, you could play it either way, but it's like, neither. No, instead they resolve it with blackmail. Blackmail, blackmail, blackmail. And for the record, yes, I know the team utilizes blackmail often in the original comic as well. But that's how they solve everything this season, and it gets boring. It's pretty well established at this point that none of the series regulars are going to bite the bullet, and that's okay. You don't need to be a kill-em-all like Game of Thrones to generate tension. Mission Impossible movies are tense. Even if you know that the characters are going to survive in something, you can still mine quite a bit of thrills out of the audience as they anticipate how the heroes are going to escape their predicament. Watching a character win the day with their wits is just as exciting as watching a detective character unveil a mystery. But aside from the season highlight whale scene, most solutions are solved by blackmail. And it's even worse because the blackmail performances aren't written that threatening. It's like if you've ever been a dungeon master and one of your players threatens an NPC and they do it really awkwardly and unconvincingly, but then they roll a nat 20 so it has to work. That's how all the blackmail scenes play out, and it starts to get wearily predictable. Anytime a character is put in a do-or-die situation, you already know how they're going to get out of it. And just in general, that's my biggest issue with all this. Season 2 is wildly predictable. What is Billy will survive using blackmail? What is Starlight will survive using blackmail? What is I like to see the lights go out? What is does she need this or do you need this? What is there's no tension because he always kills people this season? What is there's no tension because he always kills people this season? What is people's heads start exploding so the trial can't happen BVS style? What is none of their special weapons wind up getting used in yet another subversion? What is your wife is about to die in 2 seconds? What is it's not a twist, it's a dream sequence? What is he uses his laser eyes to burn the flowers? Oh, he didn't burn the flowers. Oh, that's kind of interesting. Anthony Starr has always stolen the show, but Homelander's been written sort of one note this season. Looks like he's finally going to get some more interesting... Oh, he burned them later.
I'm the cuck.
In conclusion, I think the show pulled the trigger on putting the boys on the lam too early. So you have shows like Dexter, right, where they never put him on the run from the law, they never change the status quo, and the show suffers massively for being too afraid to shake things up. On the other hand, you have shows that shake things up but then don't really have any ideas or plans for what to do with it. Think Archer Vice or the later seasons of Silicon Valley. The question I have is, had the boys mined all it could out of having the boys be unknown members of society, working in the shadows against the Seven, risking discovery with each daring mission? I don't think so. I guess the writers didn't think so either, since they walk it back in the end in a really, really unnatural way. The only episodes that actually make use of the on-the-run elements are the premiere and episode 3, which are coincidentally the only 2 episodes I found exciting. Half the time it genuinely seems like they forgot the boys are wanted men and lady. At one point they even check Huey, probably the 3rd most wanted man in America, into a hospital immediately after he gets injured raiding an evil facility. What are you, fucking nuts? And in the end, the only thing of consequence that came from the season was the death of Butcher's wife. Did they get all the mileage they could out of that too, though? I feel like they could have done more by keeping her around for a bit, diving deeper into how Butcher behaves with her so we feel the impact when he loses her all over again. I mean, I know they're going to have the angle with him hating the kid, but wanting to protect him and teach him at the same time, and I'm sure they'll do a funny scene where this ruthless bastard tries to connect with the child. But the only thing I really have to look forward to next season is, will that conversation be as awkward as when Stormfront tried to talk to him?
So are you into any things that, kids are into?
Yeah.
Like, NBA 2K?
Ben Garrison.
What's that?
Fair.